Welcome in another edition here of Mean Streets, presented by So Rare, live on our FTN Network YouTube page, also Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here with you. Happy Tuesday. Missed you guys yesterday. It was a holiday here north of the border, and we are back here ready to go, and we got a lot to talk about as per usual on Mean Streets. I'm just getting my timer ready. It's just like, focus in on the camera. I'm here. I'm ready. I am excited about today's show. We got the great Mike Randle of FTN joining us in just a little bit. We're going to have a little fantasy football conversation. We're going to talk running backs here today. Last week, we talked quarterbacks. We took a look at my top 24 quarterback rankings and compared them with the top 24 quarterbacks taken off the board in Underdog Fantasy Best Ball drafts. We're going to do that today with running backs. I'm not going to share my rankings maybe a little bit later on the week. I actually have all my rankings live over at ftnfantasy.com. Redraft, rookie, dynasty, best ball. I know Randall has his rankings over at ftnfantasy.com. We have a ton of rankings that you can compare. We're starting to do live best ball drafts here, not just on this show. Tomorrow on Game Plus Network, you will see myself take part in an Underdog Best Ball draft. Tonight on our FTN Network YouTube page, Mike is going to roll through an Underdog Best Ball draft, and he's going to do it weekly. In fact, we have all kinds of content for you guys. I know it's fairly early. It's just May 23rd, but it does feel a little bit like football season, doesn't it? You know, the draft is now, basically a month in, and rankings are up, projections are up. We have the best ball guide, which is available for you over at ftnfantasy.com. Not just the rankings and projections, but strategy pieces, stacks to attack, values, a lot of things that we've been talking about here on this show. We have links inside the description of this video. If you're just stumbling across Mean Streets, welcome in. We're also available on iTunes and Spotify, and of course over at Anthem Sports Entertainment on Game Plus Network. We're super thrilled to be part of the Game Plus family, but links inside the description of this video. If you're looking for the strategy video that we did with Sam Sherdery, the stacks, the values, we really seeked some values out at the running back position about 3 weeks ago. And I still feel like there are some values at the running back position, but want to get Mike's thoughts on some of these running backs. Bijan Robinson is going as RB2, seventh. Actually, I've seen him go like fifth, sixth, seventh overall. I think his ADP is like 11-ish. So we'll talk about if it's too early for Bijan, some steals maybe outside the top 24, how to attack the running back position, talk about it from a zero RB strategy, which I know a lot of people like, myself included, especially when it comes to these best balls. I really want to attack the wide receiver position early, get some stacks early, and seek out some value at running back. All in Football is already recorded, but we talked about some of these guys like James Conner, Rashad White, Cam Akers, Joe Mixon. I know there's some question marks around some of them, but these guys were really draft winners. Like Tampa didn't do anything really. Rashad White, that's his backfield. Great offense, not so much. Rams, questions about the offense. Cam Akers, backfield. James Conner didn't do anything in Arizona. Going to be without Kyler for the first few weeks of the season. James Conner was RB10 in points per game last season. He's going outside the top 24 at the running back position. He's been a beast inside the red zone in each of the past 2 years. He's been a beast through the air. At least 30 grabs in every single season, but his rookie campaign, if Hopkins gets traded, we could see more targets for James Conner. It's not an efficient offense, and that's why, the ADP is baked into that price. But we will talk about all that stuff, some stacks, some values, and kind of tee up what Randall's going to do on our FTN Network YouTube page tonight. It is game 3 between the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights in Dallas. The series shifts to Big D. The first 2 games have gone to overtime, and they were ended fairly early. And you see the 2-0 series lead there for the Golden Knights. And last night, the Florida Panthers, it wasn't an overtime win, but it was Bobrovsky again. And we talked about it on this show. It was more Pete Jensen of NHL.com, and I think it was more Dangle Betzelli than Mean Streets. But Bobrovsky was 10-1 before the Eastern Conference Finals started to win the Conn Smythe Trophy, and he is now the favorite at plus 210 over at DraftKings. Had the shutout last night. That was Carolina's best showing, best performance. They hammered the Panthers in terms of shot attempts and shots. I mean, the Panthers didn't even have a scoring chance in the second period. It was heavy Carolina in the second and the third, but Bobrovsky, you got to be lucky to be good too. And I think Carolina hit about 3 or 4 posts last night. Music happening all the time behind Bobrovsky's ears, but they couldn't find the back of the net, and Florida's up 3-0. We'll touch on that in just a little bit, but it really will be a lot about game 3 here tonight. Got some picks and some props Also, game 4 between the Heat. Last night, the Lakers were done. They were bounced. They were swept. And I actually wanted to start with that in a second. We'll give some love to a Canadian and Joker in just a moment. But we will talk Celtics and Heat here in a must-win situation for Boston. Man, I don't want these conference finals to be over so quickly. Denver swept LA. We could see Miami sweep Boston here tonight. We could see the Panthers sweep Carolina tomorrow. If Vegas takes a 3-0 lead, that's it. All the conference finals, in the NBA and the NHL over just like that. I don't want it to be. The hockey's been so good. Tons of overtime action. Game 1, Florida and Carolina almost went to 5 overtimes. Game 2 went to overtime. I mentioned the first 2 games of the Stars and Golden Knights series have gone to overtime as well. So we got some 3-point props. I got to lean right now to the bottom. I mean, come on, let's go Celtics. You need a W here tonight. Plus 100 on the money line. We will talk about a couple Celtics as for some player props as well. We are going to scan the diamond for some MLB picks and some props. And Randall's hanging by here quickly. Before we break and bring him in, I do want to give some love to 2 guys. Let's start with Nikola Jokic because of what he's been doing. This guy is just an absolute weapon. He's fantastic. I believe you have the numbers, Quan, from last night. If you don't, it's all good. We can revisit it. I don't have them off the top of my head. I was going to rely on the board, so it's all good there. But he wins the Western Conference. There it is, the MVP, the Magic Award. What can you say about him besides the fact that he should have won MVP again, right? Let's be honest. They didn't do it because it's 3 straight years. That's it. You're seeing it. Embiid's at home on the couch. Jokic, you can't stop him. He can't be stopped. He's got circus shots, outside 3 on one leg, just chucks it up at the buzzer. He just can't be stopped. What he's doing is historical. We talked about it last week. He's doing things that have never been done before or have only been done once by like Oscar Robertson or Wilt Chamberlain. You know what I mean? Like guys that I haven't seen play live, that I only see highlights and read about. The numbers here for the iTunes listeners. This is what he averaged in this series. 27.8 points, 14.5 boards, 11.8 assists, 1.3 steals, 1.3 blocks, shot 51% from the floor, 47% from 3, 78% from the line. He's going to get the attention that he deserves, and he's great, and he's phenomenal. Just talked about him being MVP again. Should have been. How about the boy from Kitchener, Ontario? A shout out to the Canadian, Jamal Murray, who doesn't really get the love that he deserves. What a run he's been on. An unbelievable stretch that he had from game 2 to game 3. These are the numbers led the series in points, led the series in threes, 32.5 points per game, 3.8 threes per game, 2.8 steals, 5.3 assists, 6.3 boards, shot 53% from the floor. What? 41% from beyond the arc and 95% from the charity stripe. Jamal Murray has been phenomenal in the playoffs, and you got to view this as now you see it, right? Denver's been good for a couple years. They've been hanging around. I thought they had a good coming out party in the bubble a couple years ago, especially Jamal Murray. Now you're seeing it firsthand on the biggest stage, sweeping the Lakers, rolling through the West. When Randall was on this show a couple weeks ago, we talked about the odds for the best team in the Western Conference all season long, at least from January on. They were the best team in the NBA, but nobody was talking about them. We're talking about the Bucks. We're talking about the Celtics, the 76ers, talking about the Suns, talking about the Lakers. Nobody's talking about the Nuggets as the best team in the West all year and at 11-1 to win the NBA championship before the playoffs began. It's one of the better 1-2 punches in the league. And if you didn't think it was, you definitely do now, don't you? Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, fantastic stuff. We're going to break right now, and we're going to bring in Mike Randle. Meddy's in the house. You got some football stuff. We'll get to it. You guys have any fantasy football questions, any underdog questions, keeper, dynasty league stuff, rookie-only drafts, super flex dynasty? I'm seeing some questions roll in. Now is the time to get them in. Little 2-minute break. We'll bring in Mr. Mike Randle of FTN to break it all down here next. Keep her locked. We'll be back in a couple.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at SoRare.com/MLB.
The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level.
Welcome in. Mean Streets here live on Game Plus Network, iTunes, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to your favorite podcast. We got Mike Randle in the house at Randle Rant. Welcome in. Happy Tuesday to you, good sir. Want to talk some football with you, but what do you think about Joker and Jamal Murray as one of the better 1-2 punches in the league at the moment? I mean, it's easy to say now because they're in the finals, but my goodness, what a showing from these two.
Chris, absolutely dominant. And Jamal Murray was a little slow to warm up here, end of the year in the playoffs, but he has returned to the bubble Jamal Murray that we saw a few years ago. Just tremendous. Jokic doing what LeBron does not do. Quan is in the back. I know he agrees with me. Jokic scoring late, getting to the basket. He's not deferring to Dennis Schroeder, and that's why the Nuggets are moving on here. And you called it when I was on this show. We said it was plus 1,000 to win the title, which was crazy. It is proven to be true. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope cannot get enough of the revenge games, and here we are. The Nuggets are moving on, despite the fact that everyone thought it was going to be Celtics-Lakers with the leaked narrative. I know.
Yeah. At least LeBron drove the basket, right? I mean, if he would have settled for a 3-point shot, I'm sure he would have heard a bunch of nonsense, but he drove the basket and just helped for Jamal on the defensive side of things. Here's two things. This is from StatMuse. Teammates to average 25 plus points per game on 50 plus field goal percentage and 40 plus 3-point percentage in a conference finals. Curry and KD in 2017, and now Joker and Murray. And then Murray, the first player ever to average 30 points on 50, 40, and 90 shooting in the conference playoffs. I mean, again, just one of the, solid point guards that nobody talks about. Like, nobody talks about Jamal Murray. They just talk about Joker. And I know you agree. I saw you tweeting last night. He should have won the MVP again.
Yeah, he should have, because what they're doing, what Jokic, Murray, and Jimmy Butler are doing is they're creating shots. I get criticized on Twitter. I don't expect LeBron to have 80, okay? I expect him to facilitate what Jimmy Butler and Jokic and Murray are doing. They're driving, they're kicking to Michael Porter. They're attacking the basket. Shooter is replacing behind them. It's not just standing one-on-one. The Celtics, Chris, we'll get into a little bit, have the same problem. What they've struggled in the fourth quarter is it's Tatum one-on-one. It's Jaylen Brown one-on-one. You have to create. Jimmy Butler is not clearing out unless he's being guarded by Grant Williams, in which case he is clearing out. But outside of that, they're facilitating, using their entire team. That's what you have to do. Nuggets and Heat are doing it the best, and that's why they are 7 games in, swept for the Nuggets, 3-0 for the Heat here, and one more game away from having that final that no one people think are going to watch, but it's going to be very compelling.
Listen, I'm all for the chirping, but what are you doing chirping Jimmy Butler? What are you doing chirping LeBron James? What are you doing chirping these guys that just can bring their game to another level? It's not why and I know the Celtics fans came at me heavy on Twitter when I said, like, what are you doing, Grant? Like, why are you talking? Just save it for after the game at least. And it's like, oh, it didn't do anything. It had no effect, but it kind of did, because immediately after, Jimmy Butler went right at him immediately, and he was just having an okay game. And towards the later part of that fourth quarter, he had a couple ISO moments right on him, and he made him look silly. And I don't know. We're not here to talk basketball, but do you think the Celtics extend the series?
No, I don't, because I think people are underestimating the fact that the Heat don't want to go back to Boston. Now that Denver is done, they want that rest. Tyler Hero's still lurking. They're not going to want to move forward and risk somebody getting injured here. So I think we're all evaluating the Celtics. I think the Heat don't want to go back. They don't want to go back to Boston. We'll go back to Red Auerbach, turning the heat off in the locker room. All of a sudden, it's 3-2. No one wants that. I think they put the hammer down tonight. And our model loves players like Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler tonight. So,
look at Quan. Do you see him in the private chat? Ask Mike about LeBron James's performance.
Listen, it's very simple, Chris. LeBron over his career. Listen, he is a principled guy. I'm not saying that. He believes that at the end of games, he should go to the open man. Now, listen, if you want an undrafted free agent like Austin Reeves controlling your entire destiny when you're down 3-0, that's fine with me. But LeBron needs to attack the basket. He had 31 in the first half. I've seen this before. Listen, to me, he's the second greatest player I've ever seen. But the reason that we all get paid at our job, in our relationships, is to get through the tough moments, to get through the stressful moments. And in those situations, what I've seen in this past series, game 2, up 3, entering the fourth quarter, takes a shot, down 11 to the Nuggets. Last night, 15-point lead at halftime, gets to down 3. He took one shot. He's not understanding that he has to impose his will on the game. It is what it is. I get a lot of heat from our FTN company here, but I just think there's a difference. You get paid to make those shots late in games, or at least create them. And we've seen Jimmy Butler, Jokic, and Murray the best. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to argue that. I would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive at the end of fourth quarters. I mean, people have been saying that his whole career. He's kind of a pass-first guy. But you'd like to see him kind of overtake the game himself. Says he needs to reevaluate his future. And, of course, he's going to say that with his son, Bronny, expected to be drafted in a couple of years. We'll see, I mean, he may be playing with Bronny. He just set that up in his contract. It's going to be a year contract, and then he'll be reevaluating again next time this year, wondering where Bronny goes in the draft, and we'll see if those two pair up. But let's get into the football talk. Underdog Fantasy. We've been talking a lot about Underdog Fantasy here. If you're unfamiliar, the biggest fantasy football contest ever over at underdogfantasy.com. Best Ball Mania 4 here, and you can do a 30-second clock, an 8-hour clock. There's $15 million in prizes. You have 670,000 entries by the time it's all said and done. Currently 78K there. First place, 3 million. Second, $1 million. A 300 grand for third. You're going to get paid and, get your money back. And this contest here in particular is $25 to enter. But even outside the top 100,000, you're going to get your money back. And they do have smaller contests, of course. The puppy is a $5 entry that you can get into. They get the bulldog, which is a larger one if you want. Actually, the puppy is gone, but it'll come back. The Dalmatian in there as well, which is $101 to, of course, with the name, to enter. You have $3 drafts with 3 people, 12 people. You can do a $5 draft with, a handful of people too. So there's all kinds of different contests. So you can check it out, underdogfantasy.com. I mentioned the draft guide atop the show. We have a link inside the description here. All kinds of content and articles, rankings, and sleepers and busts and stacks and values and strategy pieces and things like that as well. FTN promo code for you. They'll match your first deposit 100% up to $100. So that is great as well if you're unfamiliar. We've done some best ball drafts on this show before, whether it's football, NHL, baseball, basketball. We are going to continue to do them. Football all the way up until kickoff. And you can do pick entries too, like people love their props over or under over at Underdog. You can mix and match across all the sports. I know a lot of people come at me about Bet365 with same game parlays. We've had success in the NHL, in the NBA. You can do that over there. You can do, if your book doesn't allow a same game parlay for tonight, Vegas and Dallas, you can take a Dallas player, you can take a Vegas player over or under on their prop over at Underdog Fantasy, and away you go. So they do offer a lot more than just drafts, and you'll be taking part in a live draft tonight on our FTN Network YouTube page.
Yeah, Chris, I have issues. Okay, number one, I've done 30 best ball drafts at this point.
That's it.
Okay? Too many issues. So tonight I'm going with Sam Choudhury, who's going. You had on. He's going to destroy me tonight.
Fantastic.
But I've had some opinions, and I've seen his players drop, and I think there's some values that are there. The only way I can do it is through repetition, like Rocky, Chris. You have to go out. I have to drink the egg shake in the morning and just get out there and put the work in. And some things have become clear now across multiple positions that you see where players are getting drafted and where the value is.
Before we get into running backs, this is going to be a little bit of a running back combo. Maybe we'll break and get some quarterbacks. We've got some looks of ADP, just these guys from, the quarterback and running back position. Is there any takeaways that you've had here and any differences you've seen in maybe guys that are rising or falling or, I'm with you. I got to do a few of these drafts. I've done a few of them to, kind of get comfortable where guys are going, stacks that I want to get, stacks that I have to be aggressive getting. Is there anything that you've learned so far doing some of these that you can, share, whether it's a strategic piece or something that you can share for the people?
Yeah, three things. I'm going to go over 5 things tonight that I've learned so far, but I'll give you three real quick. Number one, late round QB. You have to decide what you're going to do with quarterback because there are late round values. We talk about what we know is that we don't know anything, Chris. That's number one. So late round QB, you're seeing a Justin Herbert drop to quarterback 7, 8. He's right around Trevor Lawrence, who's a hot quarterback. And then at the other end, you're looking at someone at the end like Russell Wilson. I know we hate Russell Wilson. I took him first in Scott Fishbowl. It was an abject disaster. But does that mean that he's still not a value around quarterback 20 or 22? I mean, this is still a guy who could conceivably be a solid quarterback 1, maybe low end, and you're getting great value. Number 2, the RB dead zone between rounds 3 and 6. I think it's revived. I'm living there. I'm looking at my exposure right now in Underdog Fantasy. Here are the running backs, Chris, that I have the most exposure to in these 30 drafts. Dameon Pierce, Alexander Madison, Najee Harris, Samaje P. Ryan, Brian Robinson, and Joe Mixon. Those are players that are available. They all have uncertainty. We're not sure about their roles there. Those are all players that are existing in that area. Maybe the RB dead zone is coming back to life. The last one for me is inflection players, and I find 4 of them. Number 1, I mentioned Herbert. Herbert with Kellen Moore coming over, who puts up 30 points a game like it's a slot machine when he's in Dallas. They got rid of him because he threw too much. Now he's going to Justin Herbert. Could see a career, could see an MVP-like season from Herbert. Number 2, I know we'll get into him, Bijan. I know Ezekiel Elliott. I know Saquon Barkley's rookie year. But are we sure Bijan Robinson should be the number 2 running back? We avoid players when they're getting drafted at their ceiling. Is Bijan not getting drafted at his ceiling? Are you that sure he's going to be RB1? That one is sketchy to me as well. And the last one I think is an inflection point here. 2 more players. One, Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert was real effective for the Eagles before he got injured. That is a player, a line of demarcation around tight end for me that I think could be the overall tight end 1. After that, we're looking at Pat Freiermuth, who's among several targets. We're looking at David Njoku, who I love, but I don't think is of the same caliber. And then the last one here that I look at, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley has come to Jacksonville. We love the Jaguars. Their over-unders 10.5 for their win total. Trevor Lawrence taking the next step. Why is Calvin Ridley so far ahead of Christian Kirk? Are we just assuming that Calvin Ridley is going to slide back into that role? If he does, it's great. If he doesn't, then Christian Kirk is a massive value. Should I even mention Zay Jones? So those are a couple players that I'm going to talk about tonight that I think you really have to key in on and make a decision about.
I love it. And we had that Jags conversation with Sam as well a couple of weeks ago when he jumped on. Ridley's getting drafted roughly as wide receiver 17, hasn't played football in quite some time. I think he's a really good wide receiver, and he's going to add a lot to, the Jags. This is a guy that can get you 1,400 yards. I mean, he's done it before. He can certainly do that. But I do agree. It's very similar to me where last year, and maybe it's a little different because we had a rookie wide receiver and a sophomore wide receiver, but I didn't understand why Elijah Moore was going as roughly wide receiver 2022 and Garrett Wilson was going as wide receiver 57 and 60. It's like, why is there that big of a gap? There was so much uncertainty between the two. Who knows if Moore is going to be the automatic number 1 and Garrett Wilson, I liked him. I think a lot of people liked him more as a prospect than Elijah Moore coming out of college. And it was just such a big gap. And I love the Jags stack. Year 2 with Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence. I like it all. Like I really like that stack, but it's a price that you got to pay as a top, 4th round pick in Calvin Ridley, where Kirk is going much later. And it's, you can get yourself Trevor Lawrence. I did a stack late last night and I did get Ridley, but I have more Christian Kirk than Ridley. Let's get into the running backs. I really want to touch running backs with you. Maybe we can break and do some quarterback stuff. So you mentioned him, Bijan Robinson. Quan, if you have the running back ADP for Underdog, we got the top 12. Do you have that handy, sir? No, those are the values. So we'll have to get, maybe we'll break here and we'll load those up. We do have them for the people. It's Bijan Robinson is in there as well. So Quan, we'll break. We'll take a quick break here. We did some strategy pieces. What time are you going live with Sam?
7 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time, sir.
So subscribe to our FTN Network YouTube page. Guys will be with you live. It's tough to answer questions and do a live draft, but you'll have Sam with you. And I'm sure you guys will do a great job of answering some of those questions. So Quan, let's take a quick break and we'll dive into the running backs and we'll take a look at quarterbacks here too. Keep her locked. We'll be back in a couple.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB. Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
Talking Underdog Fantasy here on Game Plus Network. Meaney and Mike Randle here with you, taking a look at running backs in the ADP, where some of these running backs are going, to see if we can find some value, some targets, some fades, and tying in the strategy, which you touched on in the last block with the zero RB. Let's start here up at the top. Christian McCaffrey, no surprise. Justin Jefferson has been the first pick on average, and I do agree with that. Christian McCaffrey here at 3.4 is the first running back. And you mentioned Bijan Robinson. So his ADP is actually 7. He is the second running back off the board. Austin Eckler, who's been the best running back in football over the last 2 seasons, is going as pick 11 on average. Jonathan Taylor as RB4, Saquon Barkley RB5, Nick Chubb RB6, Tony Pollard here as RB7. And I've seen a massive jump, maybe not a massive jump, but when I did this 2 weeks ago, he was outside the top 10 at the running back position. He's now 22, the pick on average there. And of course, Dallas didn't do a whole lot. They let go of Zeke. He is coming off a broken fibula. I do have some questions whether he can handle a full workload or not, but my goodness, he's been a really good running back for the Cowboys, and I know you that star is close to your heart, so maybe we'll touch on that in a second. Derrick Henry there at pick 26.8, and when we brought you on a couple weeks ago, we talked about the best ball schedule, and I'll just go to it right quickly. Just a friendly reminder of Tennessee's schedule in the playoffs from week 15 to 17. He's got the Texans twice, and he's lit up the Texans over the course of his career. Just wanted to throw that out there to you. But he is falling down draft boards a little bit as RB8 on average. Josh Jacobs, 9. Ramondre Stevenson as RB10. Breece Hall as RB11. And Travis Etienne there at 12. You touched on Bijan. Is there anything else you want to say? What I will say about Bijan is that, and everybody knows this, but Tyler Algier racked up 1,000 yards on 200 touches, right? 200 carries, 1,000 yards. That's why I think it's so appealing, because no shots at Algier. He's a good running back. He did some great things. But Bijan is definitely a better talent, a true bell cow back. Arthur Smith loves to run the rock. I think the Falcons running, I think their offensive line is very underrated, and it's all baked into the price. But my goodness, I don't think I may have one share. If I do 50 drafts, I may have one share just because I got to get one. But I'm not spending that kind of capital on him. There's not even in my redrafts. I just won't do it.
Yeah, like, pull up the list, Quan. I'll take a look at it here. My thought is I want to find players, Chris, because you know what happens with your early picks. You cannot bust. That's the problem. So just going down this list really quickly. Christian McCaffrey, obviously fantastic, but Elijah Mitchell, usage questions. Are we sure he's going to be RB1? obviously solid pick, but I see questions with him. Bijan, of course, is Algier just completely out of the picture? It's still a rookie. It's still a team that didn't score a lot of points. It's still with Desmond Ridder, who is essentially a rookie quarterback because he only started about 4 games. Then you have Austin Eckler, who, again, they were going to let go. They didn't pay. Could that be a different offense with Kellen Moore? Jonathan Taylor coming off an injury. Saquon, of course, very solid. Nick Chubb, is he going to catch balls now with Kareem Hunt not there? Tony Pollard, yes, Chris, near and dear to my heart, but do they trust him to be an every down running back? And if they don't, isn't he being drafted a little bit high? Love Derrick Henry, of course, and I think Tennessee is very undervalued because we think they're not very good at all. Tannehill comes back. Henry's there. All of a sudden, the team's pretty competitive. They're certainly well coached. Josh Jacobs, a lot of touchdowns. That carried him. Can he repeat that? Ramondre Stevenson, to me, is very secure. I love that he's in yellow in that graphic because I'm getting a lot more Ramondre recently. Breece Hall coming off an injury, Travis Etienne. So what I'm saying is all of those running backs, there is issues with some of them. The only players I really can't poke holes at is I love Nick Chubb. I've seen it like Missouri, the show me state. I've seen Nick Chubb. You know what his floor is. You know he's dynamic running back. And Ramondre Stevenson, barring an injury, has minimal competition unless, Chris, you're a big Ty Montgomery on third down fan, which I don't think is really going to be an issue.
Yeah, I'm not. I did highlight some of these guys. Like I tweeted this out. And it's like, why'd you highlight? I was like, hey, you gotta watch the show. Stevenson, I just love. That's it. I like him. I think he's a good target. I think he's a bell cow back. I don't think New England really did a whole lot, right? Bringing in James Robinson. I just feel like Stevenson is certainly the guy there. I think he's going to be the goal line guy. He doesn't have to compete with Damian Harris. I think he did a good enough job as a goal line back last year, overtaking Damian Harris. And I think Bill Belichick really likes him. Bill Belichick is going to tell you straight up how he feels about a guy. He'll tell you. He'll say Ramondre Stevenson needs to be better as a pass catcher, needs to be better as a pass blocker. He said before the season started, he improved in all those areas dramatically, and that's why he overtook Damian Harris. And I think that's why, in years past, you see New England with 4 or 5 different running backs, and it's a crowded backfield, but that just isn't the case at the moment. I highlighted Tony Pollard because he's polarizing, right? He's been the better back in Dallas over the past couple of years. He's explosive, but you just talked about all the question marks. I don't think Dallas has those same question marks because they let go of Zeke, because they drafted Deuce Vaughn, who's 5'5", 179 pounds. Vaughn is a good back. He led all college backs with just under 2,000 total yards last year, 1,936 total yards, 24 touchdowns his last 2 seasons. 49 catches in his last 2 years at Kansas State, 124 targets over that span, but he's not that guy that's going to steal goal line work, is going to steal like first or second down carries. It's kind of a change of pace. It's a cool story when Chris Vaughn is their scouting director, made the call and drafted his son. Like that's a cool story. And, he's a good back and he's going to be explosive through the air, but Pollard is coming off a broken fibula. Wasn't the goal line back there last year. And at times I felt like when they gave him those touches at the 5 and he didn't get in, Zeke would quickly come in and Zeke would get the job done. So I think that Dallas, don't you think that those questions that we have, don't you think that they don't have them because they cut Zeke, because they drafted a back late that's not going to steal those first and second down opportunities?
Chris, if they don't have those questions, then Tony Pollard is the value on that board that was just up there. Because whenever he's replaced Zeke, you've seen RB1, RB2, overall RB3 performances. So the question is, do they trust him in that role? And will he stay healthy? Because he's a little bit of a diminutive guy. I agree with Vaughn. He could be like a Deion Lewis change of pace, but I want security when I take an early round pick. That's why, like you said before in the intro, I tend to be a 0 RB guy because I don't want to blow it. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love CeeDee Lamb early. I want the 150 targets. So if I'm taking a running back early, I want security. McCaffrey was great. Mitchell's a little bit of an issue, but he's so dominant, not a problem to me. Pollard is, again, if he's going to get that role, he's going to be great. But a Nick Chubb is super safe. And Ramondre Stevenson, they brought Damian Harris back. They rushed him back. And you saw Ramondre Stevenson's snap share go from 82% to 77%. They still trusted him. I think he was 4th in targets, 3rd in receptions, something like that. So I want guys that have a secure role. I don't like them coming off of injury. Pollard is dynamic. The question is, it's not what we think. It's do we think the Cowboys see him that way? Wouldn't be surprised to see like a Kareem Hunt added in July and just mess everything up here. But that is the question, because if Pollard is the go-to guy, he's going to eat in that offense.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's still 3 veteran backs that are hanging around: Zeke, Fournette, and Kareem Hunt, and who knows, Dalvin Cook maybe very soon too. We just don't know. We're gonna break. I'm gonna keep you around a lot longer than I said I would. Maybe not a lot longer, but just a little bit. I want to roll through some more stuff and keep the balance of the show. But I'm just gonna my 2 cents here quickly. I am in on Chubb. I almost want to highlight him. That's probably the one running back, and there's nothing against the others. I'm with you on Robinson. We just touched on that too early. I think Eckler and Barkley and Taylor are fine, but the only running back out of the first 6 that I have exposure to in underdog best ball drafts is Chubb. And he's that guy that I take like as my second pick. But for the most part, I'm wide receiver to start. And we'll dig into some other running backs and some values here in this next block. But I do like Chubb. I got some shares of Pollard. Love Stevenson. I like Hall and ETN, but I have some concerns taking Breece Hall as a top 30 pick coming off the injury, and then drafting a guy and also having Michael Carter there and Zonovan Knight. Like, there's a lot going on. I think he's clearly the most talented in the running back room, but coming off that injury, may not see Breece Hall full go until October. It's a pricey price to pay as a top 30 pick at that point. And I don't know if ETN is that bell cow running back that a lot of people think that he may be heading in as well. Doug Peterson likes to use himself some running backs, and he may not be the goal line back there. At times, it was Trevor Lawrence and like JaMychal Hasty. It could be Bigsby. It may not be ETN, but those are the backs that I really like. I think Chubb, man, if we can get 30-plus catches from Chubb, he may just be the best running back in football this year. Let's break. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's help out the people with the 0 RBs and try to find some value. So, Quan, send us a break. We'll be back in a couple.
The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level.
Welcome back in. Chris Meaney, Mike Randle here with you, talking running backs over at Underdog Fantasy. Just giving you guys a look of where these running backs are getting drafted, ADP in the top 24, and we're going to try to seek some value and talk some strategy. So we both kind of feel like 0 RB people. I don't mind getting myself a bell cow back in the first 4 rounds, but what I've noticed is you can really find some value here. Najee Harris is a guy that we've talked a lot about here, Mike, over the past couple of weeks. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, he was outside pick 45. I've taken him in the 4th round multiple times here so far. So he is RB13 on average. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, RB14, Kenneth Walker, RB15, Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, and Joe Mixon. Then you get outside the top 60. Mixon's jumped up a little bit. When Sam joined me 3 weeks ago, he talked about him being one of the biggest steals that he's seen, in round 7. Of course, there is some some risk, with some off-field stuff there with Joe Mixon, but it does sound like his contract's going to be restructured and he's going to be hanging around there at least another year in Cincy. Dameon Pierce going a touch early, I do believe, but even falling down further than this in some drafts, RB20 there on average. Dalvin Cook, my goodness, if Cook is the starting running back in Minnesota week 1, he may be the biggest steal on this board at pick 70. But if he's not, Alexander Madison's been the biggest steal so far. DeAndre Swift at RB22, Isaiah Pacheco at RB23, and Cam Akers there at 24. What do you make of this list when you take a look at it?
Yeah, death, taxes, and Najee Harris. To me, we now are ignoring and dropping a running back outside the top 12 who's gotten over 80% of the touches, who is the clear goal line back with a quarterback that's going to dump it off and not look to make mistakes for a coach who loves to run the ball here. An improved offensive line. He's getting disrespected. Why on earth, Chris, is Jahmyr Gibbs RB14? First of all, David Montgomery's there. We just fall in love. We are like zombies with draft capital. He's already injured. That's crazy. I want to be in on the Lions. I love the Lions offense. 31 points per game at home last year. Absolutely. Very bullish on the Lions. Give me Amon-Ra St. Brown. Give me David Montgomery 2 rounds later. Absolutely. Joe Mixon, the off-the-field issues, I understand. He's a massive value. And I do not think, Chris, that Dalvin Cook is going to be there. I think they're going to get rid of him. There's talks of him going to Miami, them cutting him, which means Alexander Madison. But it also means one other thing. Look down your draft boards at Ty Chandler. He was a 5th-round pick in 2022. He's got 4.38 wheels coming out of North Carolina. Who was the quarterback there? Sam Howell. He's running all over the place. That's why Chandler's numbers are a little suppressed here. There's your value. If Dalvin Cook goes, that's why I'm grabbing Madison. I'm with you. But there's also Ty Chandler. There's a lot of value there in sort of a weakish division with uncertainty. Loss Thielen, rookie coming in. That could be the value there. So I agree. Look at the bottom of this list. Even a guy like Cam Akers, number 24. How did he end the year, Chris? 3 straight 100-yard games, averaging over 5.5 yards per carry.
I love Pacheco at 23 and Akers. Yeah, I mean, they just didn't do a whole lot to, Zach Evans is a late round back. Sean McVay's always drafted back since he's been there. And Cam Akers, to your point, down the stretch of the season, he was fantastic. He ends up finishing his RB 33 and a half-point setting and didn't do anything until week 12 of the season. I mean, he was away from the team at a couple weeks. He wasn't even hanging around the roster. He was just at home, and we thought he was going to get traded, but he was great. And you mentioned the offensive line. They bolstered that a little bit. So I'm with you on Gibbs. I love the running back, but what are we doing here? We are just shooting for upside and like best case scenario. They signed Montgomery. He's a good back. He's been among the leaders in yards after contact. He's a good goal line back. Look at what happened last year with Detroit. And I don't want to compare Gibbs to Swift, but Swift went roughly the same, even earlier in some drafts as like RB6. I saw him as early as end of the first, early second. And who was the goal line back? Jamal Williams. I think that we're going to see Montgomery be the goal line back in this offense. And if that's the case, this guy's going to rack up double-digit touchdowns, and Gibbs is going to be great. He's going to catch balls in the backfield. He's going to get his carries. It's going to be a nice 1-2 punch. It's a good real-life situation, but we're drafting him fairly early. Like, is he going to have more touches than Miles Sanders, Joe Mixon, Dameon Pierce? I just don't think so. Kenneth Walker, I have some questions. I mean, Charbonnet's in there now. It's a good situation in Seattle. Have 3 wide receivers that are good and 2 running backs that are solid. The defense has improved as well, but he's not going to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. Jones has got to worry about how good is Jordan Love going to be. You also got AJ Dillon there, who most likely is going to be the goal line back there as well. What do you make of like Miles Sanders and J.K. Dobbins? Like, if you had the choice between one of the two, are they both fades for you? Because Sanders had a great season last year, Mike, over 1,000 yards, hasn't been catching a lot of balls out of the backfield. But Jake asked me that question this morning on All in Football. How close could he be to a bell cow back? Could he catch 30, 35 passes and get 200 carries on the ground?
Yeah, you guys did a great job this morning on All In talking about it. He mentioned Cam Akers' schedule is rough, so he's talking about making a trade for Cam Akers a few games into it. Listen, J.K. Dobbins, I think they've showed their hand with the Ravens. Lamar is back. They don't use him in the passing game. How many times you see JK get a big first half and then don't hit his over-under number in the second half because they end up having the pass. They do a bunch of different things. So I'm not real interested in JK Dobbins. They brought Gus Edwards back on a reduced contract. There's just a lot of uncertainty there. Little high for him. And the same thing with Gibbs, which is the other one for me. You're looking at Gibbs. Is this the Jerick McKinnon effect, Chris? Is because we see the passing down back who does well on random teams, and so we all flock to it? I don't see it. Dobbins is a little iffy for me. I want that certainty. I like the 20 carries. And even Kenneth Walker, I understand that. But why would Gibbs be going ahead of Kenneth Walker? Guys, Kenneth Walker ended the year week 16, 17, 18, 105, 142, 124 yards. I think he had 500-plus games here. Yes, Charbonnet is going to be an issue, but I'll take the guy. If I want a running back, Chris, I want him getting the goal line carries. I want to know that, which is why getting a Najee Harris in the round that we're getting him a little bit later, you can start with a wide receiver. You can get a running back. I want the certainty. I don't want uncertain pass-catching backs that may or may not be used. I mean, uncertainty is the death nail for best ball here. I am having zero exposure to Jahmyr Gibbs. I could get there with Dobbins to a certain extent because he gets the goal line carries, I would hope, even with Lamar. But still, I want to know he can be used in the passing game, which is why there's a chasm of a difference between like a Ramondre Stevenson and a J.K. Dobbins to me, not just 4 spots on the best ball depth chart there.
Yeah, you can go wide receiver, or you can get one of the big 3 quarterbacks if you want. Depending on what wide receiver you get, you can stack up. Maybe you're a big Kelsey, truther, and you take Kelsey, and then you can get Najee as your RB1, or you can kind of round this out as, Harris could be your RB1, and then you can get maybe Pacheco and Akers as your RB2. You can fill that out with maybe a Madison or a Rashad White. I mean, Pacheco, what I said, we got to get out of here, but Pacheco, in year 2, he was like a guy that wasn't even considered to be the starting running back at this time last year. Like, he was a late round pick, and he kind of, stole it from CEH, but he did it down the stretch on the biggest stage in the Super Bowl. I thought he was fantastic. Now he heads into year 2 as the RB1, understanding the playbook a little bit more. And with Andy Reid in this offense as the goal line back, I think he's terrific value, even though he won't catch a lot of passes. Quickly on the way out, Rashad White, James Conner, Dave Montgomery. In on any of those 3?
I have a lot of Rashad White. I'm worried about the team, but I think the volume is safe. Who are the 2 others that you said? Rashad
Dave
White?
Montgomery or James Conner?
David Montgomery, absolutely. James Conner, I'm worried because I don't like Arizona. I don't like their offense at all. Yes, he was productive, but I have concerns about him for a team that I just don't like. I'd rather have a younger running back in Rashad White on a team that I don't project to be strong than James Conner. But David Montgomery, absolutely, especially a couple rounds after Gibbs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he could get double-digit touchdowns. I love White. Just showed 50 catches as a rookie, but there is questions about the offense. But again, it should be, I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes top 10 in touches this year.
Totally agree.
Didn't do a whole lot to take away from some of the work. He just may not be that efficient. Even Connor, not that efficient. His finishes as an RB10 last year, but in points per game, that is. But the offense without Kyler to start, and they're not going to win a whole lot of football games this year. It's going to be a rough go. All right, check out Mike, 7 Eastern. On our FTN Network YouTube page, going to walk through the best ball draft, talk some strategy pieces as well. Mehdi, I see the question. I'll get to that. We'll break here. I got some NHL picks. We'll wrap up with some NBA, MLB rapid fire stuff, but do appreciate your time, Randall. We'll talk to you soon, good sir.
You are the man.
Back in a couple. Thanks. Hang tight. NHL props here for tonight. I think Dallas wins on home ice. I'm going to be taking the Dallas Stars on the money line. And here are a few props to consider. I do like Jonathan Marchessault. He's got 12 points here in the playoffs, 6 goals and 6 assists, and 10 points over his last 6 games. So he's been playing really good hockey lately. And I think that this is a really good price. I mean, some of these shot props are just too juice to get behind. You got to try to find some value like we had last night, Sam Bennett. It's pretty much the only thing we had right last night, Sam Bennett, to pick up a point at minus 130. But Marchessault here at minus 128 for a point. Joe Pavelski for an assist. Listen, Jason Robertson, 46 goals in the regular season, only 2 in the first 2 rounds. Now he's got goals in each of the first 2 games in this series. That's it. Well, you get the monkey off your back, puck luck starting to turn your way. I think Robertson finds the back in the net again, and that would mean Joe Pavelski will pick up an assist. And I have here Bet365, a couple same game parlays for you guys. Pavelski and Hintz for a point at plus 100. Stevenson and Stone for a point at plus 160. I also think if you wanted to go Marchessault and Jack Eichel for a point, that's a way to go as well that I do like and I will have in the bet tracker. I think Hintz is going to get 3 shots, but the best price I'm seeing at Bet Rivers is minus 157. We can't really get behind that as a single. I've been taking, shot props from one series and the other series and parlaying them that way. You could do Hintz and maybe Brendan Montour or Sam Bennett or, I'd say 1.5 shots if you can find that on Jordan Martinook, things like that. But Theodore here, who's, manning the first power play in Vegas. I could have gone Alex Pietrangelo. I think he's fine as well. But Hintz and Theodore, Hintz over 2.5, Theodore over 1.5. That at Bet365 at plus 125. Wyatt Johnson's the guy that I really wanted to touch on at plus 134 over 2.5 shots. Wyatt Johnson leads the Stars in shot attempts in this series with 10 at 5-5. That is, he's got 6 shots. He's been really good on home ice as well. Game 1 at home, 7 shots. Game 2 at home in the opening round, 5 shots. Then the series shifted back to Dallas. He was stuck on 2. But against Seattle, game 1, 3 shots at home. Game 2, 4 shots at home. And in this series in particular, 10 shots at all strengths over the last 2 games. He's got 15 shots on goal over his last 3 games. But at home, he's been getting those softer matchups, those nicer matchups, and he's really just been strong on home ice. He's 5th in these NHL playoffs in expected goals at 5-5, according to Natural Stat Trick. So he is getting attempts and looks, 2.5 at plus 134 for Wyatt Johnson. We're going to break. We got some NBA props and MLB props. And I will get to that question, Maddie. You know what? Do it. Do the trade. Get it done. Jordan Addison's always going to be the number 2 in Minnesota, always behind Justin Jefferson. I don't think Higgins is going anywhere. I think he's going to be the number 2 for life in Cincy as well. But it's possible they move on from him. But you are getting the better player. It all depends on your squad, right? It's tough to give up 201 as well. I think Addison in a super flex probably is falling off the board at pick 7, but you're getting the better player. Maybe you get another pick. Try to get another pick, like a 3rd in there as well in return. Makes it feel a little bit easier. You get a couple picks. All right, we'll break. We got more picks for you next year on Mean Streets.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB. Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
Okay, let's start with the MLB props. Quan, I got a couple here for you guys. Astros over 4.5 runs. Colin Rea, I think this is a good matchup for the Astros. You got Jose Altuve back there. This number is climbing a little bit. I got that from Unibet. I think DraftKings is hanging -140. I like the Astros on the money line, and I like them to have over 4.5 runs. And also, I just think we'll see some offense in LA. I thought we would see some last night between the Red Sox and the Angels. We should see some here today. You know, Bayo's been a little bit spotty with the command. He struggled mightily against the Angels just a couple weeks ago at Fenway. They really got to him. And Griffin Canning, you know, it's been some decent outings from him, but he does struggle with command as well. He's a big fly ball pitcher. And I do believe some of these lefty bats inside this lineup here for the Red Sox can get to him. So I'm taking the over 9.5 at +105 or +100. Yuri Perez is a guy we talked about in his MLB debut on this show. We talked about a strikeout ladder for him. He's pitched 9 2/3, 2 starts. He's punched out 13. That's 12K per 9. Over 4.5 is solid here at +105. I'd maybe consider the latter again. The Rockies are in the middle of the pack at strikeout percentage at 23%, but he's got some swing and miss stuff, man. I really like what I've seen from him so far. And over to the NBA. To the association on the way out. I think the Celtics force a game 5 here with a W on the road, +100 for the Boston Celtics. Nope, those are the quarterback rankings we'll get to maybe tomorrow. Yeah, chuck that up one more time. There it is. Derek White over 2.5 threes. Derek White so far in this series, 3 for 5, 3 for 5, 3 for 6. The minutes have gone up 21, 23, and 26 at +142 for 3 trays. Gabe Vincent, I don't think he's going to do what he did in the last game. He popped off 11 for 14, 29 points, but 6 for 9 from beyond the arc. 1 for 4, 3 for 5 in this series. Most of his shot attempts are from beyond the arc, over 2.5 threes at +117. How about Grant Williams, ladies and gentlemen? All he needs is 5 points here. 26 minutes and 29 minutes in the last 2 games for him in this series. 9 points and 12 points. He's getting the minutes, and I think that's the biggest thing. He just needs 5 points. He's got like 5 shots from beyond the arc, so he can do it in a couple threes there as well. Good luck on the court, around the diamond, on the ice. Good luck with that trade, Medi. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.